huge part of my life has been shaped by Interaction Design Association, IXDA. So it's my privilege and an honor to pay respects to IXDA because it has shaped the way I have gone through my own life. My life with IXDA started in 2004. Yeah. In 2004, there were about 1,000 people in the IXDA community. It's a not-for-profit. It's self-organized. There is nobody who's collecting money for anything that they do. There were 1,000 people at the time. Today, there are 120,000 plus people. And the same principles that started then are the same principles that guide today as well. They run one of the largest interaction design conferences in the world. It's called Interaction 18, 19, and next year will be 20, and so on. So in 2004, it was a discussion forum really. It was just a small discussion forum where you can go and collect, post your questions, and who were all there in that discussion forum? It was Don Norman, who was actively contributing to those discussion threads. It was Jared Spool of UI. He was absolutely active on it. Alan Cooper was there. Jeff Raskin, I don't know if you know of Jeff Raskin. He's the guy who gave the name Macintosh. Right? So he was in Steve Jobs' original team. He was there. They were all actually there, virtually, just short of seeing them. I was absolutely delighted to interact with those kind of guys and to see what they think and discussion threads. So then I joined in 2004, and then I became a discussions moderator. So the threads that are there at IXDA. IXDA is essentially a discussion forum. So I became a moderator on kind of moderating what's going on and all of that stuff. Then I became an official mentor. So I'm glad to say, and I think it's a privilege that a lot of us can actually have an exercise, which is to be a mentor. So you could be a mentor to a lot of designers. I was a mentor, I continue to be a mentor, but I was also an official. There was a mentorship program that IXDA ran. I don't think it's there anymore now, but there was an official thing. Because of that, lots of people on IXDA reached out to me, and some of them had some really amazing success stories, moved on, they went to Yahoo, they're now in different places, really successful careers because of that program. I became a local leader of Bangalore. We all organized a large usability day, before these conferences became big. There were free conferences, usability day celebrations that we did, back in the day in Bangalore as a local leader of the Bangalore between 2007 to 2010. In fact, we opened the first student IXDA chapter as well in NID. At the time, I again don't know if that's running, but that's something that you should reopen. So that's what we did. And then with all of that, the board sort of reached out. They said to IXDA, "What do you want to be the Asia's regional leader as well?" They asked out if you want to be a regional coordinator for Asia. So what it meant was I was the board representative for the Asia region. So each region had one. So I helped set up chapters in Melbourne, in Sydney, in Singapore. Singapore, the one, it's running so well even today. The Sydney one runs even today very well. The Hong Kong one runs even now. So those chapters were set up. So Bangalore one is of course there. Delhi, Pune, and Hyderabad sort of vanished out of the map. But so all these chapters was, I helped establish, and those are all really good moments for me and very fulfilling in the sense that nobody's paying you. So if somebody pays you to do something, it's sort of as fulfilling. But this was fulfilling because it was something I was giving back to my community. During all of this time, the reason I'm telling you all this, in 2015 is when I gave up the regional coordinator position, and Jay Datta took over from me, and now it is somebody else. I don't know the name, but that's my journey with IXDA, and it continues. So I'm in the World Interaction Design Day Global Committee as well in this year, and I have constant interactions with the IXDA board and so on. The reason I'm telling you all of this is because this also had a profound impact on me as a designer. So I was a visual designer when I started off 2 decades ago, doing a lot of screens, UI screens, you know, taking orders from the salesperson who used to go and meet the client. So he goes to the client likes it, doesn't like it, whatever that is, he comes and tells me, like, kind of, okay, thank you so much, and here, whatever views that you gave me, and I'll fix a design based on a sales guy's input. That's what I was doing. And then I went with a technology guy, the tech architect who's sitting there, he's the boss, right? So he's this tall, dark, handsome guy who's sitting there, and you need to go and maybe make sure that you check with him. He will vet your designs, and he'll tell you if it's good or not, if it's feasible or not. Is it too difficult for his developers? Those kind of things used to happen. So I was like, this support function is what I used to do at the time. Nobody asked me, how should I transform my organization using design? Nobody did. Nobody thought it was so important. Then I came across user-centered design. Design is a process. That's what I came across. On using design for efficiency and effectiveness and so on. So that changed the way I think about design. So I started using those things for my conversations, and then actually started adding more meaning into my design. Then I moved on using design for business impact. I was able to tell clearly to my clients on what kind of impact I can give to through the design of your website or mobile app, whatever that is. Right? So I was doing all of that as I moved on. Today I lead a large team and I lead the practice of design. One of those recognized by a large organization which thinks that it's an important function to exist in this large entity. Today people actually ask me and my designers as well on how do you change functions such as HR, human resources, not screens anymore, but an entire function which has a history of probably 50 years, 60 years. It has been going on, it's been proven successful, that's why you have an HR function everywhere. But using design, how can you change it? How can you change supply chain and procurement? So people ask me those questions. And I'm so proud to use the design process to bring it. So that is really what has happened through this journey of mine. And which is also the evolution of design. And when I say mine, I'm also talking to in representing all of you, right? So this is a journey that we've all taken, where design is playing a much more front and central role. It's actually changing businesses and organizations. Now, my request and call to action to all of you is to look at it beyond this as well. Can we look at changing societies now? Has the time come for design to really play a much more front and central role in changing societies, cultures, in bringing in much more equality? Can we look at democracy? There is a guy in Amsterdam who is working on rethinking, democracy, the way in which you could the electoral politics works. People are working, of course, on healthcare. There are quite a few interventions that is going on across the world, right? Can we ask those questions? Today the time has come where we use designers need to stand up and play the role of activists, not designers, play the role of business and get your ROI to your organization, but actually be an activist. And that's what I want to share with you today, because this quote keeps me grounded all the time. This is by Tim Brown, and he said, in one of the IXDA conferences, coincidentally, in Interaction 18 or 17, he spoke about this. A designer creates a world in his own mind before anybody else experiences it. You know what you're creating. The question you've got to now ask is what kind of value that you will put into that world. The world which has characters, which has props, which has places, which has people. You are creating the world much before anybody else is experiencing it. What kind of values will you put into that particular world? That's a question that we all have to ask ourselves, and I call upon all of you to ask that, because design unlocks new forms of value. So we generally know one value, right? So value for money, right? Which is return on investment, and the revenues that you get. So we know that, right? That value is known. But is that the only value that we can give? But are there other values? So Bain & Company had looked at what kind of values are existing today. So, for example, they do speak about saving time and all of that stuff of efficiency and effectiveness and so on. But they also speak about motivations, morale, reducing anxiety. Those are also the values that you can provide. Self-transcendence, hope, self-actualization. Those are all the values that Bain & Company speaks about. Are the values using Maslow's hierarchy of needs. You could also provide these values. These are real values: moral values, social values, ethical values, emotional values. How many organizations are tracking those? Why can't we have those conversations with our organizations, with our clients, to have these as also something to be tracked? What are the values, therefore, you could be designing for, and are there people working on it? Right. So that's what I want to share with you today. There are a lot of people who are actually working right now on these kind of questions, which are much deeper, much more profound, game-changing. So there is this company called the Center for Humane Tech. If you heard, how many of you have heard of this company, Center for Humane Tech? Right, fantastic. They actually have a guideline on how you could create responsible design. So the reason they exist. This was actually started by Tristan Harris, who was in Google, and what he found was the increasing role of technology in people's lives and how it is affecting them negatively. Positively, we all know. I mean, of course, I always use Google Maps when I drive. Right? So I'm not so great with routes, but it also has a lot of negative effects. What are those? For example, Facebook segregates us into echo chambers. We live in a world where everybody is happy. Nobody has a problem. They're all traveling. Somebody got a promotion. Somebody's kid became the best kid in the world. Right? Those are the worlds that we live in. But our real world is very different. Yeah? So we are all in our echo chambers, and that causes unnecessary pressure. Snapchat, Instagram glorifies the good of the world, right? And then YouTube, the way Netflix guy spoke about, Netflix CEO spoke about his competition being sleep of people. So that's the kind of thing where we are, and he was quite. He came under a lot of pressure because of that particular comment. But the point here is, technology today has overtaken a lot of our lives in different ways. So the questions that these guys asked were these questions. I'll just play you a couple of videos for you to just see what if technology were designed for human values.
You've too often been sitting at an airport or crammed onto a middle seat of a plane at some horrid hour, either late at night or early in the morning, and you're thinking to yourself, why didn't I just spend those extra $40 on that other flight? We like to think that we're making conscious choices, but when we're all in a rush, the more we rely on the menus in front of us. Hipmunk is a travel website that recognized this, and they let you sort choices by human values. It's not just price or duration, but they let you sort by agony. They do this because they ask themselves, what is sorting for a price or duration about? It's not just about the raw numbers, it's about the human experience and values behind travel. So it's important to ask ourselves, what are the human values at stake in this choice? Another example where technology can help us live by our values could be when you're looking for directions from point A to point B. Of course, we know we could walk, but what if, since you've told your phone in your settings that you've been wanting to exercise, it put a choice on life's menu that said, or you could walk, and here's the fitness goal you could achieve by doing so. Or maybe in your settings, instead of valuing exercise, you've said you valued productivity, so it offers up a podcast you might like to finish in that time. 28 minutes left in the podcast, 30-minute walk, it's on your team. There could be menus that sort choices by what matters to you. Right now, we often lack choice in technology when we relate to other people. Let's look at an example of messaging, interpersonal communication, or chat. We all face this situation where, let's say there's two people, Nancy on the left and John on the right. And John remembers, I need to ask Nancy for that document before I forget. And there's this all or nothing choice, because if he doesn't ask her right now, he is going to forget. So John either holds on to that thought and is left with the burden on his mind of remember to ask Nancy, or he can get it off his mind and interrupt Nancy. So what does he do? He bulldozes her attention. And that's what we're doing all the time. We're bulldozing each other's attention with text, with chat, messaging, and all sorts of digital interpersonal communication. And every time we do that, there's a serious cost. There's a woman named Gloria Mark at UC Irvine who does this research on interruption science. And her research shows that it takes us about 23 minutes on average to resume our focus after being interrupted. It also shows that if we get a whole bunch of external interruptions in an hour, the next hour we'll self-interrupt ourselves more. And maybe you can relate to feeling like you've lost your whole day to a combination of interruptions and self-interruptions. So how do we fix this? Let's say we introduce Nancy with a new choice, and Nancy can mark that she's focused. Now John still needs to ask her for that document, except now when he hits send, he sees that it will hold the message and deliver it as soon as Nancy is no longer focused. Now you're all probably thinking, wait a second, Nancy would never do this because she's worried she's going to miss something, and what if there's something important or an emergency? But what if that's all communicated up front, and she knows John has a way of escalating any message? She can be focused and know for sure that if something important comes in, she'll get the interruption she needs.
Slack does it to some extent actually. So Slack has that, a lot of other things they do is not so great, but this one is pretty good. They also actually tell you the time at that person's time zone, so you know if you need to reach out or not. Right? So Slack is doing to some extent, but these are the questions that is being asked today. Again, look at this. Right? So people who use Facebook, for a short time it's fine. All of these are fine for a short time. The problem is they don't stay a short time. If you use less than 20 minutes of Facebook, you're still okay. But the moment you go to 59 minutes, most people who use Facebook for more than 59 minutes per day, they complain of unhappiness much more than all these particular apps. The ones that claim happiness are the people who are using these apps, Calm, Google Calendar, Headspace, and all of those things. Whereas people who use Facebook, Candy Crush, and those games, they are not happy at the end of the day. I mean, they think they're happy, but the addiction is also killing them. And those are the questions that these guys are asking. So, one last video for you in terms of the questions and solutions we can have.
To help us better understand our relationship with modern technology, let's look at this groundbreaking study about bottomless bowls of soup. We all think we're completely in control of how much we eat, but there's this study in which one group of participants is given a regular bowl of soup, and the other is given a bowl with a tube underneath that constantly refills the bowl so it never ends. The group with the bottomless bowl eats 2/3 more than the group with the normal bowl. The researchers concluded that the amount of food in front of us has a big effect on how much we eat. And so a lot of technology feels like these bottomless bowls of soup, right? These never-ending feeds in which we end up spending so much time. So how can we fix this? We can restore choice by asking people how big of a bowl they want. So what if technology were designed differently and was conscious of how much time we wanted to spend with it? What if I could select the emails that are time well spent for me to work on right now, and after selecting how much time I wanted to spend, say 30 minutes, it created a focused environment for me to accomplish what I set out to? What if my browser was on my team, and I could mark certain websites so when I went there, it would ask in the first visit of my day, how much time do you want to spend on this website today? And then the next time I went, it could highlight and ask for a quick confirmation that I want to spend more than the amount of time I selected originally. So in this example, technology helps us replace an impulse with a conscious choice. What if technology was on your team to help you live by your values?
Very good question, right? So what if technology was on your team as opposed to, So look at, these solutions are not beyond and end all of them. Some of them are already there. Screen time, for example, and a few others, they're already there because of these questions. YouTube today does not have the, after 15 minutes, they don't do autoplay. So because of the fact that these questions were asked. But also, can you think about, are we also contributing to this in some way? When we get very excited about endless spaces, we also speak about attention economy. So we say, how do we grab attention from our users? We are fighting for their attention, but do we know that subconsciously we are pushing them, down the drain somewhere? right? So those are the choices, where we have an option to exercise our choice and look at how we can use responsible design choices to affect the outcome of the design. So what can be done? So look them up, Center for Human Take. They also have a responsible design guide, like the way you have a heuristic evaluation. You can also evaluate your design against those principles, and they're very useful. A couple of other examples. Don Norman, who's recently here, he's working on Design X. A great concept, I think. The concept premise is something like this. How do you, today to cure societal problems, you definitely need technology, but how do you cure them? So you as a designer may not be the right person, so can you be a facilitator of those great solutions that are there? So you'll be a facilitator of a community champion who is experiencing that particular problem. So the community guy knows more about the problem than you do, so you help him with the design tools necessary, and therefore solve the problem. So that's what he's working on. It's called the Design X. Alan Cooper, again, all these big guys who were actually there, who were the founders of the design movement, they are now onto this. He works on this thing called the ancestry thinking. Ancestry thinking's principle is that be a good ancestor. So the idea is that you really are not leaving the earth behind. You're not inheriting the earth from your ancestors, but you're actually borrowing the earth from your children. And therefore, how do you want to live it back? So again, a great thought that pushes you in different ways. Look them up. There are some principles that he has come up with, and Mo has come up with this particular movement called 1 billion happy. Again, happiness quotient is lower in the world today than ever before, although we have all the wherewithal and the resources necessary to be happy. So he has come up with this concept, and his premise is that AI, right? The AI is like child. What you feed into the child is what it grows into. So can you feed in good thoughts to them? Or can you feed less evil and more good? So he has come up with this concept of sharing happiness. So make happiness your first priority, invest in it, and then tell 2 people who will tell 2 more, and so on. So keep creating and increasing the happiness quotient around you. So those are the concepts that are going on, and they're real. They're being discussed everywhere else, and we can provide a lending hand to those kind of concepts. If we do, we will also be able to claim a story like Carlos Pastor Jr. did. So he came in the late 90s back to Peru to head Interbank. Interbank was one of the smallest banks. It was the 25th largest bank, as he called it at the time in Peru. Today they are the 4th largest bank, but they've also gone into becoming the Intercorp, entire universe, entire empire, or the company of Intercorp. And the thought behind that is, how do you empower middle class families in Peru? Because Peru has seen more than 22 coups, military coups, in the last 100 years. So there's no democracy there. I mean, it does not last very long. I mean, we take democracy for granted. It doesn't last very long. So what he's thinking here is not to make more profits and so on, but actually this one. How do you make democracy last longer in Peru? That's by providing more resources and ammunition to middle class families to make them economically stronger. And therefore he started off the K-12 schools and a host of other things again. So these are the different kinds of things that we can do. We can get inspired from, learn from, and ask our questions in our organizations itself. And when we do, we can also map ourselves where we stand today. We and collectively as an organization, where do we stand? Are we using design as form giving? Or are we using design as process? Or are we using responsible design to actually transform societies? So you can map yourself where you stand, and then look at where do you need to go. So that's what I wanted to share with you. Thank you very much. And